Today, the world is getting its first look at a rare and haunting letter.
These boots were a shocking find because they humanized the disaster.
A violin played to calm passengers as the Titanic went down.
Today, hundreds of recovered objects tell the story of that tragic night and the souls that were lost to the sea.
The story of the Titanic has been made infamous by the renowned movie and the story of the unsinkable vessel that met a tragic end on its maiden voyage. But what about the items recovered from the wreckage? Over the years, many fascinating items have been recovered from the wreck of the Titanic, from simple chairs that tell a story to valuable artifacts that hold a deep significance. From artifacts traced back to some of the only living survivors of the crash to bizarre items that people still don't know the use of, our experts have scoured the internet to find some of the strangest artifacts found in the wreckage of the Titanic. Let's take a deep dive to the bottom of the ocean and explore the most disturbing items recovered from the Titanic. Citizenship.
Cracked open, the yoke, everything came out and just created, everybody got mixed in.
Let's start our journey off with one of the many ways the residents on the Titanic started their journey, by declaring their intentions to become U.S. citizens. This rare paper artifact belonged to a German immigrant and was recovered from the wreckage. What stories could this document tell? Who was the person hoping to become a U.S. citizen, and why did they ultimately choose to travel on the Titanic? The answers to these questions and more make this everyday legal document a haunting reminder of the people who once called the Titanic home. Paper or textile items that were recovered survived because they were inside suitcases, explained one of the scientists behind the recovery efforts. This strange artifact serves as a reminder of the hopes and dreams carried by the passengers of the Titanic, as well as the unfortunate end they met. Many people on the Titanic were hoping to become U.S. citizens and start a new life, but the tragedy would cut their journey short. Bowls.
Like the ones shown here are unique and exclusive.
While many of the Titanic's artifacts are somber reminders of the tragedy that occurred, some items found on the ocean floor show signs of a happier time. These bowls, recovered from the wreckage, were once used by passengers to enjoy meals on board the luxurious ship. The pristine condition of these bowls, despite being submerged for over 100 years, is a testament to the craftsmanship of the time period. These bowls also add a personal touch to the tragedy, as they were likely used by individuals who would ultimately lose their lives on the Titanic. Whether they were used by first-class passengers or crew members, these bowls serve as a symbol of the everyday activities that took place on the Titanic before the disaster struck. Holding one of these bowls in your hand, knowing it once served a role in someone's daily routine on the ship, would no doubt be a haunting and powerful experience. Hat.
So that's more of a way of telling the story. Who is this person who had all these things?
This bowler hat looks the perfect picture of decay, a shadow of its former self. The brown, tattered fabric and crumpled shape testify to its long journey at the bottom of the ocean. Recovered during one of the several expeditions to the site, this hat belonged to an unknown passenger on the Titanic. But who was the owner of this hat and what was their story? The hat bears no signs of damage from fire or smoke, which suggests that its owner most likely didn't make it onto a lifeboat. It serves as a grim reminder of the many lives lost on that fateful night and the stories that will never be told. This decaying hat from the Titanic holds a certain eerie attraction and serves as a symbol of the tragedy that occurred over a century ago and has captured the attention of the world ever since. Debris.
Today, hundreds of recovered objects tell the story of that tragic night and the souls that were lost to the sea. Here are 13 of the most fascinating.
While most of the Titanic remains at the bottom of the ocean, that doesn't mean that parts of the ship haven't made their way to the surface. Pieces of debris from the Titanic were found floating in the ocean and were recovered by search parties over the years. These pieces of debris and wreckage serve as a reminder of the massive impact of the sinking of the Titanic and the sheer devastation it caused. In one case, the salvage company RMS Titanic Incorporated managed to pull up a 15-ton section of the ship, only for it to break apart on the surface due to the fragile condition of the metal. Other items, such as deck chairs and plates, have been recovered and put on display in museums, giving visitors a tangible connection to the ship and its passengers. The 15-ton section of the Titanic was even placed on exhibit at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, offering a rare chance to see a piece of history up close. And while the vast majority of the Titanic has yet to be removed from the ocean's depths, these small pieces of debris offer a glimpse into the tragic story of the ship and its passengers. The last menu.
Menu for the final first-class meal served aboard the Titanic on April 14, 1912 survived in the purse of Ruth Dodge.
There are plenty of truly disturbing discoveries made by researchers and divers who have delved into the wreckage of the Titanic, but there is also a human element to the tragedy that is often overlooked. One of the most haunting artifacts found in the wreckage is a small menu from the last meal served in the ship's first-class dining room. This menu, belonging to Ruth Dodge, the wife of California banker Dr. Washington Dodge, serves as a reminder of the final moments of comfort and luxury that the passengers on the Titanic experienced before the disaster. The menu features a vast array of dishes, including eggs, argenteuil, bologna sausage, and a selection of cheeses. It also includes a drink menu with options like Munich lager. These small details may seem insignificant, but they serve as a poignant reminder of the real human lives lost that tragic night. It's fascinating to dive into the once luxurious lives of the passengers on the Titanic, and it helps us remember that they were real people with hopes, dreams, and appetites just like us. Cherub.
This bronze cherub stood at the foot of a staircase to light the way, its torch now lit by electricity.
While only the most luxurious ships today have full-on statues, the Titanic was a different kind of ship, one that even boasted cherub statues. This particular artifact boasts a haunting beauty. Once an ornate cherub statue, it now sits as a broken reminder of the grandeur of the Titanic. This statue adorned the grand staircase of the ship, adding to its opulence and grandeur. The fact that it was recovered from the wreckage is a testament to the strength and determination of the team who brought it back to the surface. Okay, maybe the team members themselves didn't retrieve this item from the Titanic, but one dedicated scientist had to pilot a submarine 12,500 feet below the ocean's surface for many hours to reach the wreck. This beautiful and haunting cherub statue now tells the story of the Titanic still resting at the bottom of the ocean, with skeletons littered where there were once people, and with items like this one scattered around. Hartley's violin.
Violin played to calm passengers as the Titanic went down.
What's one of the most haunting and bittersweet aspects of the Titanic legend? It's the story of the band playing on as the ship sinks, trying to keep spirits and calm in the midst of chaos. But what happened to their instruments? That's where things get even more intriguing. While some reports say they played the hymn "Nearer My God to Thee," others suggest a more cheerful tune was played to lift spirits. However, the most stirring story comes from the recovery of Wallace Hartley's violin, the bandmaster's cherished instrument. Given to him by his fiancée, the violin was not included in an inventory of his belongings, but was later found and identified through testing and time spent in seawater. In 2013, it was auctioned for over $1.2 million. While the violin now sits in the collection of a private owner, the shocking and haunting nature of this artifact continues to captivate and mystify. Tattered Shoe.
These boots were a shocking find because they humanized the disaster.
What's so interesting about a tattered, poorly preserved old shoe? Nothing, except for the fact that the condition is so poor because it was recovered from the depths of the Atlantic Ocean amongst the debris of the Titanic. This men's leather shoe, consisting only of the welt, top cap, partial quarter, and insole, is rarely shown due to its fragile condition. This shoe may have once been a prized possession of a passenger on the Titanic, but now it serves as a poignant artifact to remember the lives lost on that fateful night. Nobody quite knows who originally owned the shoe, but the now weathered item was no doubt of fine craftsmanship when it was first made. It's a small yet powerful reminder that even the most mundane items can have a deep and tragic history. Amy.
Salvagers brought up a rose gold, silver, and diamond bracelet.
Let's travel back to 1987, when a crew of salvagers discovered a rose gold, silver, and diamond bracelet bearing the name Amy. It's a piece of jewelry that could easily be seen around someone's wrist walking down the street today. But the story behind it is what makes it truly haunting. The bracelet was found inside a leather bag that protected it from the corrosive seawater and the organisms that quickly disintegrated other items from the Titanic. The whereabouts of Amy and her bracelet have yet to be determined, leaving experts and enthusiasts puzzled by its origin. Was it owned by one of the few living survivors of the Titanic, Amy Stanley, or was it a prized possession of another woman on the ship? The mystery of the Amy bracelet only adds to the eerie and unsettling feel surrounding the items recovered from the Titanic, and no doubt lends itself to a deeply disturbing backstory. Who is the mysterious Amy, and what became of her after the fateful night that claimed the lives of over 1,500 passengers on the Titanic? These questions may never be answered, but the intriguing and haunting nature of this bracelet continues to fascinate and haunt those who come across it. Perfume.
That was brought on board by Adolf Saalfeld. He was from Manchester and he was a perfume salesman.
The environment where the Titanic is currently settled is not an easy one for any item to survive. Yet incredibly delicate perfume bottles manage to make their way to the surface from the dark abyss of the ocean floor. These small leather pouches were discovered by a salvage crew in 2000 and contained perfume samples left behind by a German perfumer named Adolf Saalfeld. Saalfeld was a first-class passenger on the Titanic, carrying 65 vials of scent samples to potentially gain American clients for his perfume business. After the ship sank, Saalfeld likely wasn't focused on his fragrance business, leaving these vials behind to become one of the only surviving remnants of his work. They went on to inspire the creation of modern-day perfumes based on the legacy of the Titanic, sparking controversy for many who believe it's a disrespectful commercialization of the tragedy. Pajamas. If you thought the travelers on the Titanic simply slept in their clothes, think again. These delicate pajamas were recovered from a suitcase belonging to one of the passengers on the ship. They serve as a sobering reminder of the personal belongings left behind by the victims of the disaster. These pajamas could have once belonged to a wealthy traveler enjoying the luxurious accommodations on the Titanic, completely unaware of the tragedy that was about to strike. Of course, some of the poorer passengers on the ship may not have been as fortunate to have pajamas in their suitcases, but the ocean didn't care. When the ocean claimed the Titanic, it took everything with it, leaving behind a haunting trail of possessions from those owned by the poor to the ultra-rich. Pipe. Have you ever dreamed of smoking out of a pipe that one of the travelers on the Titanic used before it sank? No? Well, here's your chance to at least see one. This hand-carved pipe was recovered from the wreckage and is believed to have belonged to one of the wealthy passengers aboard the ship. It's elaborately decorated and shows the skill and craftsmanship of the original owner or the shop where they purchased it from. The pipe was found in the personal belongings of one of the passengers in their stateroom. It's easy to imagine the owner smoking it, perhaps while enjoying the opulent luxury of the ship. Of course, it was most likely abandoned in the hectic evacuation or lost during the sinking of the ship. Whether the owner survived or not is a mystery. Halvorson's letter.
Today, the world is getting its first look at a rare and haunting letter.
Meet Alexander Oscar Halvorson, a businessman, husband, and victim of the Titanic disaster. The letter he wrote to his mother a day before the sinking is one of the most heartbreaking and chilling items recovered from the wreck. The letter was found in Halvorson's pocketbook, damaged by seawater, and lacked postage, yet it was still delivered to his mother. The content of the letter may seem normal, but knowing that both Halvorson and his family would not survive the disaster gives it a haunting and tragic significance. In the letter, Alexander Oscar Halvorson mentions the grand size of the Titanic and the iconic John Jacob Astor IV, who also perished in the disaster. If you wanted anything disturbing enough to make you question the fragility of life, this heartbreaking letter is it. It's a reminder of the human lives lost in one of the most infamous and devastating maritime disasters in history. Sinai Cantor.
One of the most poignant artifacts is a pocket watch that was found on the body of Sinai Cantor.
Sinai Cantor was only 34 when he boarded the Titanic to start a new life with his wife Miriam. Sadly, this pocket watch was the only item recovered from his body after he died in the icy waters. While he tragically managed to save his wife, getting her onto a lifeboat before it was too late, he wasn't able to save himself. This pocket watch, carefully recovered from Cantor's body during the rescue efforts, was undoubtedly a weathered reminder for his wife of his heroic actions that day. His death, however meaningless, at the very least, meant that his wife would survive that night and make it to shore safely. Love letter.
Only letter written on Titanic stationery to actually have gone into the water.
Meet Richard Geddes, a steward aboard the Titanic who, like many other ship stewards, wrote endearing letters to his wife while at sea. This love letter, written on original Titanic stationery, was found in its original White Star Line envelope and details a near collision with the SS City of New York. The two ships came within feet of each other, with the Titanic's propellers causing the ropes of the City of New York to snap. Thankfully, disaster was averted, but the incident was seen as a bad bad omen for the doomed vessel. Addressing the letter to my dearest Sal, Richard Geddes details the events of the day in what would soon be a tragic reminder of his life cut short. We got away yesterday after a lot of trouble. I could see visions of Belfast. It must have been a trying time for the captain. To think that this love letter was written only days before the Titanic met its fate makes it a truly haunting and emotional artifact. The letter, originally written on stationery provided by the Titanic, serves as a reminder of the human connection and love that was present on the doomed ship. Today, it stands as a symbol of the enduring love that can withstand even the greatest of tragedies.
Ship's bell. The iconic bell that had resonated throughout the Titanic.
Bells have fascinated humans ever since the early days when they were installed on ships to help sailors tell the time, signal warnings, and mark important events. These bells were typically cast from bronze, a durable and weather-resistant metal, which made them perfect to survive the harsh conditions at sea. And when RMS Titanic Incorporated recovered a ship's bell from the wreckage of the Titanic, it was an unparalleled find. This bell was an important part of the lookout location on the ship's deck, and would have been rung by lookout Frederick Fleet when he first spotted the iceberg that would seal the ship's fate. The significance of this bronze bell cannot be overstated, as it gives us a tangible link to the fateful night of April 14, 1912, the day that it was rung for the last time. The bell is now preserved and displayed at a museum where visitors can see it and pay their respects to the victims and survivors of one of the greatest maritime disasters in history, Alligator Purse. Marion Meanwell might have been a third-class passenger on the Titanic, but her belongings proved that she still had hopes and dreams for a better life. As a milliner or hat maker, Meanwell was traveling to the United States to continue her work. To make a good impression, she carried an alligator skin purse with an endorsement from her landlord, stating she was a reliable tenant. Unfortunately, Meanwell did not survive the sinking of the Titanic, but her alligator purse was found almost intact by salvagers years later. The contents of the purse, including official documents such as her marriage license, survived due to the lack of light and oxygen at the bottom of the ocean. Now, the purse itself remains preserved in order for future generations to remember her tragic death. Locker 14 F-Deck. Have you ever wondered if it would have been possible to prevent the sinking of the Titanic? Well, one small key may hold the answer to that question. This key, recovered from the wreckage of the Titanic, belonged to steward Sidney Cedinary and was found on his body shortly after the disaster. The key, labeled Locker 14 F-Deck, gives insight into where Cedinary may have been on the night of the sinking. He could have been in the F-Deck, which eventually flooded, indicating that he may have been trying to help passengers on that deck. Despite not knowing the exact details, auctioneer Andrew Aldridge believes that Cedinary's selfless actions saved lives. In 2016, this seemingly unassuming key sold for a staggering $85,000 and just might be the key to a much more tragic and disturbing backstory of the Titanic as new information comes to light. Chandelier.
More than 5,500 artifacts salvaged from the deep.
This bent golden object might not seem too impressive at first, but it tells a tragic story of a once grandiose chandelier that adorned the lavish interior of the Titanic. Recovered from the ocean floor, this chandelier is a testament to the opulent and luxurious decor that once filled the ship, but its twisted and damaged state also serves as a grim reminder of the violence and destruction that took place on that fateful night. This artifact still bears the marks of the forceful impact of the sinking ship and was sold at auction in 2012 to a private buyer.
I mean, this is not about treasure hunting. This is about a collection of artifacts that are meant to stay together.
Who was no doubt thrilled to own a piece of history from the disturbing sinking of the Titanic. Jewels.
Gems.
This is a beautiful 3-diamond ring.
Sure, finding pieces of history might be exciting, but every scavenger has at one point gone looking for something shiny. And when you're talking about a historic shipwreck, there's plenty to go around. That was the situation for salvagers who came upon a leather purse full of jewelry from the Titanic. The bag itself likely started the night of the sinking, as some of many similar containers were entrusted to the care of the ship's pursers, crewmen who handled passengers' valuables and money. And while pursers did their best to load these containers onto lifeboats, some, including this one, didn't make it. In the years since the wreck's discovery, these jewels formed a chunk of a glittering and unsettling exhibit. While nobody was sure who this particular bag belonged to, whispers swept over a unique necklace studded with gold nuggets that ultimately ended up in the hands of minor socialite Margaret Brown, affectionately known to many as the unsinkable Molly Brown. Whistle. Let's take a look at the whistle that belonged to Harold Lowe, the 5th officer of the Titanic and one of its greatest heroes. This small but significant artifact potentially served as the literal whistleblower of the disaster, alerting nearby ships to the sinking vessel. But that's not all, as Lowe also commanded the 14th lifeboat and rescued survivors from the icy waters. While it's uncertain if this specific whistle was used by Lowe on that fateful night, its connection to one of the key figures of the disaster makes it a poignant and striking item. Many survivors recounted hearing a whistle on that cold, fateful night, and this might just be the very instrument that saved their lives. From love letters written by passengers to mundane items that have taken on a deeper meaning, the artifacts recovered from the Titanic continue to amaze and mesmerize us with their stories, and are undoubtedly a disturbing piece of the history of the unsinkable Titanic.